Alright, so today's goal is to fix all of this stupidity that's going on down here. And the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to fight with these adorable little clips that John Deere and MTD put in. And those clips are going to be on the other side of your clutch and your brake attachment pieces there. So what we need is we need from this side of the pulley to be a straight shot all the way down through to going into the back pulley. You do not want any kind of idler or anything on this side. I did it in order to make this work. It's the same exact thing that I did on my dragster. I'll put a quick little video of that up right here. Now, what we need to do at this point is I pulled the pins out of this. We're going to get this bar dropped out of here. We're going to get this idler out of here. And then from there, we're going to grab a piece of iron or whatever and make a straight line and see if we can manage to cut out and move the bracket over. There we go, we got the stupid clip out, so we should be able to drop the clutch out. Maybe. Not. Okay, what about the brake? Oh, the brake came out. Why won't the clutch come out? Okay. There it goes. So, what do we do? Oh, we caught that. So there we go. There's that bracket we were talking about earlier. So if we lay this in, like so, this is how the bracket sits right now. And we need the bracket to sit right about here to make this all work. So we're going to cut all of this out. Alright, we got our Air Force cutter here that definitely has seen better days. Might be time to upgrade that soon. And we're going to come in here and see if we can cut this out. Ella, come here. Well, fine, be that way. You're a really horrible co-host. Alright, so as far as a cat is concerned, obviously it doesn't take much ice to hold one of them up. But we've got a drill bit here. And if you're ever going to test ice for safety, you need to get one of these extensions and a spade bit of this nature. Because you need a full actual 6 inches. Not the 6 inches we lie about, but an actual full 6 inches of depth. Now, we've got really bad weather coming in. It's fog and everything, so whatever we test today, we're going to have to retest later. But let's see if we finally got some racing capabilities out here. Whoop. Okay, we just ended up going through right there. So we're at about 5 inches. So what I've got on here is I've got a mark that's at 4 inches. So right now this is safe enough to basically run around and play as far as sledding and stuff. But you need at least 6 in order to put a decent ATV weight on the ice. So as it is right now, we're going to call it good to shuffle around on here. But we got some time to build. Alright, so now we're going to pull this and that belt will go where it naturally wants to be. So here's our clutch rod here that seems to want to come over into this area. And here's our brake that wants to be right about in here. So that should work out if we cut out a little more into this. And this is what I was telling you about the pulleys. See if we can hear this on film. See that? Let me pop this out of here. Watch that center. Yep, that whole entire center is beaten loose again. And these weren't cheap ones. These were actual Sten's pulleys. But that's why it is you want that side to be a straight shot as much as possible. There we are. So this originally would have been right about here, and I cut the tab off that was right here because that went to a safety switch that obviously we're not using anymore. So I ground down over in here so that we should be able to move this over. I've got to clean up that area there that the plasma cutter chewed up a bit, and we should be good to go. We're in a bit of a precarious balancing act of bungee cords right now. So I've got this adjustable bungee cord set in so that I can set this to about where it was stock. I'm going to actually bring it a little bit further forward to gain myself some leg room when it comes to dropping down into the frame on this thing with where I'm going to be sitting. And as you can see, we've got our belt coming out of there. We've got it straightened right out right now. We're going to need a smaller belt when this is all said and done. Here's our bracket piece cut out. You can see right there where the bracket originally was welded on, which means this right here would have originally been right in here. And we might have to clearance this. We'll see once we actually get it up and running and going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up right there with that frame rail piece. That way I have a judgment place to be able to repeat this idea in the future. Or if it works, you guys will know that if you want to do it, just line it up with that frame rail. And coming around here, so we've got our 10-inch engine pulley coming down through to our stock double pulley. This is on all the key chassis now that have the FNR, where the very dry pulley is on the back of the FNR. If you have one of those, this is stock. The difference is if it's an FNR setup, then you've got a pedal right here that brings this in to activate versus having a clutch that you release in order to activate it. So that's one of the things we're going to have to play with when we do the Bug Dragster. So that comes down through, goes through there, comes back up and around, and we give it the go-go juice. So we're going to set that bracket and weld it and go from there. Oh, this is the stock spring, but the stock spring normally would have gone to a location right about here in the frame where the deck lift would have been. You can see a divot there and you can see a divot right there in the frame. So originally that would have gone straight back, but I did find that hole right there seems to line up pretty decently. Now, whether that hole will work when we try and put the pan back on and then cut everything out in order to be able to sit in it, I'm not sure, but for now, we're going to hope it does. There is really just no good way to get all of this in video because there's a lot going on right here, but I'm going to try. So what we have right now is we have the brake rod right here. And down in here you can see that this moves around for quite a ways before it actually starts to go and hit onto the brake in order to clamp. So what we should see here is we should see the clutch move a significant amount and then the brake gets applied, which is how you set it up so you can be able to clutch and race and then press down all the way in order to be able to let off the clutch and hit the brake. So let's see if we can show that now. We should see clutch move, and then the brake should start to move now, right there. So we have clutch and brake. So clutch all the way in, brake is letting off, clutch all the way out. Obviously, we need a smaller belt because this is coming way too loose, but we also need to do our belt retainers on the rear pulley also. Well, at this point, we've made the belt guard for the back of this so that this is accessible even when the fenders are on. So this belt guide just slides back like so, and we should be able to whittle in the belt now in order to get on there like that, and then pull the belt guide back up and stick this back in. Alright, so we got the belt system all nice and tightened up, so we should be able to throw the clutch and not have it spit this out the back like it was before. So clutch down. There we go. So we got plenty of throw. The system's not ideal. This belt needs to be swapped out for a slightly smaller one, but this belt is already damaged. So we're going to run it just to test it for this first round. Let's talk about this steering, shall we? So we've got this piece, and this piece comes across, and we've got a little bit of clearance to work with. So we can come up to about an inch or so higher than where it was stock before we start to hit anything underneath. Well, an inch or so higher is just about what we have from here to here if this thing is in here level. So what I think we're going to do is undo this, take this stupid plate out anyway. This is the plate that the front of the deck would have attached to, so we don't need it anyway. Drop this out and see if we can figure out a way to re-drill up here, or worst case scenario, we re-drill up here and we weld a washer in place if it's too close to this, and I think it's going to work its way down through. All your force is going to be in the up direction, so as long as we can get away from this hole a bit, we should be fine. But we won't know till we drop this out. So let's take a look and see if we're even remotely close on the idea. Every once in a while you come to the conclusion you're not quite as smart as you thought you were going to be. So if we take the top of that hole, it is about 1.5 inches or so before it would hit the top there. And then we come down on this cross piece and we take the top of the hole. It's about 1.5 inches to the top, which means the most we can gain is about 1/2 inch of clearance lifting it inside of there. And we don't need 1/2 inch. We need at least a solid inch. So unfortunately, the conclusion I have come down to is I need to take all of this and I need to get it either attached to the motor or behind the motor, re-lift it up like it is now, and cut this on both sides, plasma cut this all the way to here and across, and raise all of this into this. Not exactly the ideal solution for the cheap, easy way I was looking for, but unfortunately, that's what we're going to have to do to get it up there. Got our safety third board in here underneath the motor spindle. And we've got this just as a safety to make sure it doesn't come crashing down. As you can see, there's not much holding that front piece together now. So we cut this down through, making sure to cut straight all the way to the top. Cut that down through, straight all the way to the top. and took a notch out of it so that the whole thing is going to come up into here once we do the other side. Be right back. I had an uncle who used to say that if you change one thing about how something was designed, plan on changing 20. I would say changing where that front axle is thoroughly changed those steering rods. So this angle here of this rod changed from down in here to up in here. And this side of the triangle got shorter without the rod getting shorter. Well, this stayed exactly the same. Without getting into too much high school geometry, something had to give. What I need to do now is drop the entire thing down to the ground. Take each one of these rods. Let me come around here. I'm going to take each one of these rods right here on this straightaway where I can get to it easily with the welder. And I'm going to cut it off straight. Square up each tire so that it's right in line with maybe just a little bit kick out. And then re-weld each one after I shorten it up enough, which is not going to be fun, but that's what we're going to have to do in order to square up the situation. Scratch that, new idea. I put a clamp onto the pivot, and I line that up so it's square. So now I should be able to cut that off, bring this around, and then weld it together and have full access instead of being down on the cold floor here. I like that idea better. This is one of those times where I really miss having John here when he's at school, because that little third hand definitely would make this job easier. So we've got to hold that in place. We have to start the weld on this lower one and then pull it and bridge it across without blinding ourselves. Alright, let's get real. Honestly, these should be heim joints. We should be making it with adjustable heim joints. We shouldn't be messing around with this. But at the end of the day, my furnace died. Every bit of budget I possibly had has been flushed down the proverbial financial toilet. So we're doing this as cheap as possible. Let's keep building. I get asked about belt retainers all the time. And so here's my little thing. These little tiny zip ties, if you take one and you pass it right there, it should be just barely touching the head of that zip tie towards the bottom. So this one's actually not quite as close as I would like it to be, but that's why I built mine out of washers so that I can buy the next size up in washer and get it over there. See, this one here, if I try and pass this through, see, it just catches right there. So that's my trick for judging how close it should be on the engine pulley. As you can see, these are horrifically welded up. And the reason why I cut them back here is that when I do change these out for actual heim joints like they ought to be, I can put a piece of tube here, weld it over the end of this, and still have plenty of room to adjust the heim joint thread on the inside here. Now, let's get this dropped down and check how it looks. So we rearranged the clutch and the brake. We redid all of the drive belt and everything so that it works great. But at the end of the day, I'm still 6'1", and that's not going to work. So sooner or later, you got to rip the bandage off and decide to do something. If I sit right here with my butt down as low as it'll go, that's pretty darn comfortable. Now I'm going to have to figure out a little bit of something as far as the shifter is concerned and go from there, because my hip's going to be really close, but I think we can make it work. Just to help close out the seat lowering situation, that is actually a little bit short of the original ride height, and that is the ride height we're aiming for. I think that should get my center of gravity pretty darn low, don't you? Alright, that's enough babbling for now. I gotta start sorting out what I'm gonna do with the body, get another video up for you guys, do some wiring, and by then, we should have enough ice in order to go play on the pond. See you guys soon.